Helena stirred from her slumber, her head resting against the shoulder of a stranger. For a fleeting moment, he felt a wave of confusion wash over him, lost in the unfamiliarity of his environment. The dim light of the airplane's cabin, the soothing drone of the engines, and the strange yet kind expression of the person beside her stirred a sense of unease within her. "I'm sorry, it's my mistake," she whispered, adjusting her posture and running her fingers through her messy hair. "There's no reason to worry," he remarked gently. It seemed that he needed a bit of time to recover. Helena leapt from her first-class seat, having drifted into an unintentional slumber. How did he end up in that predicament? The last recollection that haunted him was the instant he approached the bathroom, driven by the disquieting echoes of Ricardo's threatening message. "Matthew," he erupted, a sudden realization about his son hitting him with full force. In that instant, a flight attendant hurriedly approached. "Dear Madam Ramirez, your son is having trouble with his breathing. The crew on board stands together with him." A shiver ran through his veins. Helena hurried down the corridor, her excitement building as she approached the economics section where Mateo awaited her. He found him struggling for air, while a flight attendant helped him with an inhaler. "Mom," the boy exclaimed, breathless. "Inhale deeply, my dear. Breathe in deeply and let it out softly." Helena knelt beside him, battling her escalating unease. He took hold of the inhaler and carefully instructed his son on how to use it. "Have you packed the emergency medication yet?" "Inside my bag." With a sense of urgency, Helena searched through Mateo's backpack, but the medicine eluded her grasp. "It appears that Ricardo probably took it out during the visit," he murmured through gritted teeth, struggling to keep his anger in check. "How may we be of service to you?" the flight attendant asked. "We need priority landing," Helena responded, the lawyer emerging from the tension surrounding the worried mother. "My son battles with chronic asthma, and his father has decided to terminate our health insurance as a tactic to pressure me into a divorce. I do not have access to his emergency medications." Little did she know, the man whose shoulder she had rested upon was now standing tall, watching the scene unfold from the hallway. Just hours earlier, Helena was carefully reviewing the documents for the case she was about to represent in Buenos Aires. This represented his first major opportunity after the split. Ricardo, her ex-husband, had taken extensive measures to sabotage her career, contacting former clients and colleagues to tarnish her professional reputation. A notification made his phone buzz. "If you think you can take my son and me to Argentina without any consequences, you are gravely mistaken. I have already discussed the modifications to custody arrangements with my attorney." Helena took a deep breath. Ricardo had always been apathetic about the notion of custody for Mateo, until she began to reconstruct her life. It was simply another way to assert dominance over her. As the aircraft shook from the turbulence, Helena felt her balance slipping in the aisle. He settled into an empty seat in first class, next to a man in a suit deeply focused on his computer tasks. "Excuse me," she said, quickly getting to her feet. "Certainly," he responded, his smile radiating warmth and friendliness. "Is everything all right?" "Absolutely. Thanks a lot." He returned to his seat in economy class, where Mateo rested serenely in slumber. The expedition was crucial. I would support a woman in a global custody battle. He found himself struck by the irony. Eventually, exhausted and her mind clouded by stress, Helena headed to the bathroom. Upon her return, disoriented in the softly illuminated cabin, she discovered she was in the wrong seat. He had no idea that it was the very same seat next to the gentleman in first class. The exhaustion from months of legal struggles, endless nights without rest, and ongoing worry consumed her. In just a heartbeat, she slipped into a profound sleep. Javier Herrera observed the woman reclining in the nearby seat. It was rare for someone traveling in economy to unexpectedly end up in first class, but the softly illuminated cabin and her clear exhaustion revealed an alternate narrative. He decided to allow her to rest peacefully. With her head resting softly on his shoulder, he considered adjusting her position, but the fatigue visible on her face kept him in place. From her open purse, Legal documents and a photo of a smiling child emerged. Javier was drawn in by this woman, who clearly carried a heavy burden. In that moment, observing her fight beside her son, he started to understand a piece of the burden she bore. The flight attendant informed Helena that they would be landing in 30 minutes. Healthcare professionals are prepared and ready for action. Thank you, Helena said, taking hold of Mateo's hand. Everything will turn out just fine, my dear. I guarantee it. He was completely unaware that Javier had silently taken his place again, murmuring into the phone. Carlos, kindly get in touch with Dr. Mendez in Buenos Aires. Indeed, it's urgent. Severe asthma during childhood. I strive for the utmost excellence in care. Certainly not anonymous. Completely beyond detection. The scene in Buenos Aires erupted into a whirlwind of sirens, frantic medical personnel, and Helena's racing heart as she dashed alongside the stretcher carrying Mateo. Did you bring forth life? A doctor asked as they entered the medical facility. Indeed, I am Helena Ramirez, the one who brought him into this world. What medications do you usually utilize? As they hurried through the immaculate hallways, Helena expressed the situation with precision. He mentioned that the insurance had lapsed and that he was unable to bear the full expense of the treatment. The doctor exchanged a look with a colleague who seemed to be expecting them. For now, let's put that on hold. The hospital provides a program designed specifically for circumstances like yours. Helena was completely captivated by this unexpected twist of fate, with no space for uncertainty. The subsequent hours passed with a sequence of evaluations and therapies, instilling a feeling of slow but steady relief as Mateo started to exhibit encouraging signs of improvement. Mom, am I going to be okay? Matthew asked when he would finally be able to speak normally. Certainly, my dear. These doctors possess remarkable expertise. While Mateo paused to catch his breath, Helena connected with her parents living in Buenos Aires. Mom, I'm going to bring Mateo along with you as we talked about, but he had an asthma attack on the plane. We are in the hospital. Oh, my beloved. How is my grandson faring? It's gotten better, but I can't be around him all the time. I must prepare for the Mendoza case, with the hearing looming just 3 days ahead. There's no cause for concern. Your father and I will take care of Mateo so you can concentrate on your work. When the doctor returned, she handed Helena a package of medicine. This signifies the highest standard of care available for childhood asthma. Generally, it carries a significant expense, but the hospital has decided to integrate it into the care program. Nonetheless, I have not finished the applications for assistance. The doctor wore an enigmatic smile. In critical moments, the machinery of administration can operate with greater speed. 2 days later, while Mateo rested with his grandparents, Helena immersed herself in her tasks at the small office she had briefly obtained in Buenos Aires. The scenario centered on a mother whose ex-partner had illegally transported their daughter to Argentina. Her personal anxieties regarding Ricardo greatly intensified her drive. The receptionist at the building announced, "Mr. Ramirez, there's a call for you from Mexico." Lucia was the only companion from the law firm where she worked in Mexico City. "Helena, Ricardo came by to ask about your situation in Buenos Aires. It appears he could be looking for information to use against you." "I'm not surprised," Helena remarked, her voice laced with a biting tone. "He seems obsessed with controlling my decisions, despite never genuinely caring for Mateo. Proceed with care. He asserts that you abandoned your sick son for the sake of your career." Helena closed her eyes, suppressing the storm of anger within her. "Mateo is currently with my parents as he recovers, and I am advocating for a mother who has gone through exactly what Ricardo is now threatening to impose on me." After ending the call, Helena chose to savor a coffee in the hotel lobby, taking a moment to collect her thoughts. As he sat there, waiting for his order, a familiar voice floated through the air. "License Ramirez." It was the man from the plane, the one who had offered her the comfort of resting her head on his shoulder. "I'm sorry, but I can't recall your name right now." "Javier Herrera," he remarked with a friendly grin. "How is your little one faring?" Helena was struck with disbelief that he had held onto that detail in his mind. "Your kindness means more to me than you can imagine." The doctors showcased impressive efficiency. That's truly delightful to hear. Could I accompany you? His way of speaking held a certain quality, one that expressed respect and was free from the condescension she had often faced among Ricardo's business associates, leading Helena to nod in agreement. In the weeks that ensued, these fortuitous encounters became more and more frequent. Helena discovered that Javier was in Argentina for business related to his pharmaceutical company, despite his tendency to keep his professional life under wraps. What kinds of written works do you find yourself drawn to? One day he asked. Garcia Marquez, Isabel Allende, Helena responded, a smile lighting up her face. Currently, my reading consists solely of legal codes and judicial precedents. Even in the bleakest moments, we must not abandon the written word, Javier proclaimed. It stands as a testament to the existence of alternative realities that lie beyond our own. Meanwhile, Helena became enthralled by Mateo's medical treatment. When she contacted the hospital to inquire about the expenses, she discovered that a mysterious foundation had covered all costs. Is there a chance to uncover who supported it? I wish to convey my heartfelt thanks to you directly. I sincerely apologize, Mrs. Ramirez. In these situations, maintaining confidentiality is of utmost importance. Helena pondered the figure of Claudia, a former friend of considerable means who could have intervened, though their dialogue had long since faded away. Unbeknownst to her, Javier maintained a vigilant watch over Mateo's progress through Dr. Mendez. She undertook a thorough examination of Helena, revealing how Ricardo Fuentes, a businessman with significant connections, had systematically hindered her career advancement during their marriage and continued to do so even after their divorce. What you're achieving is genuinely impressive, particularly considering the obstacles, Javier noted to his assistant as he learned that Helena was close to winning her case. Organize a celebratory dinner at the hotel restaurant to commemorate the end of the hearing. One afternoon, as Helena diligently shaped her closing arguments, an unexpected text message appeared from an unfamiliar sender. I know you're in Buenos Aires with someone else. Do you think the family judge will view your actions positively? I will reconsider my custody claim if you come back and agree to my terms. With trembling hands, Helena cut the link. Ricardo consistently displayed this tendency. Assertive, calculating, adept at turning his small victories into defeats. This time, he made a different decision. This time, he would emerge victorious in the courtroom and protect his son. Little did Helena know, her meeting with Javier was far from a chance occurrence. The man who piqued her curiosity held mysteries that could change the trajectory of her existence. We have triumphed, Helena announced, stepping out of the courtroom with a radiant smile. The judge ordered the immediate return of the girl to Mexico with her mother. Sofia Mendoza sobbed as she clutched the photograph of her daughter tightly. Your recognition is valued, graduate. Your understanding means a lot to me. Everyone else turned a blind eye. Helena was swept away by a torrent of emotions. A multitude of women named Sofia have lived in the world, caught in detrimental relationships, mothers struggling against systems that favored the affluent and influential. This victory was not exclusively credited to Sofia. It was just as much for her own benefit. As Helena stepped out of the courthouse, a message awaited her attention. Let us celebrate your victory. I'll be there at the mouth at 8 p.m., Javier. Over the past month, her exchanges with Javier had evolved from casual encounters to intentional engagements. He valued his company, the manner in which he absorbed words without casting judgment, and the way he spoke of literature and art with heartfelt clarity. It was a comforting release after spending years with Ricardo, who belittled her passions, dismissing them as trivial pursuits for those without genuine ambition. That evening, Helena chose a dress that exuded elegance and subtlety. He found it difficult to remember the last time he had dressed up simply for the pleasure of it, rather than out of obligation. With Ricardo, his appearance was crucial. With Javier, it was a choice made. The establishment radiated a cozy ambience, showcasing the lively essence of the Boca neighborhood. Javier stood in anticipation, a smile spreading across his face, casting a glow that brightened his eyes. To the noble woman, he proclaimed, raising his glass aloft. In response, she spoke of fresh starts. The conversation flowed seamlessly. Helena recounted the tale of her family, disclosing the poignant moment when her father had passed away in her teenage years, leaving her mother to shoulder the responsibilities alone. Maybe that's why it was so hard for me to say goodbye to Ricardo. My mother dedicated herself completely to our welfare. He felt it was crucial to persevere in order to provide Mateo with a full family experience. Sometimes, what seems like a necessary sacrifice can turn out to be a trap, Javier noted. At 20, I faced the heartbreaking loss of my parents in an accident. My younger brother faced a respiratory issue similar to Mateo's. Without proper treatment, he hesitated, and Helena caught the torment mirrored in his eyes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her hand moving toward his without thinking. "It had been a long time," Javier said gently, as he cradled her hand in his. "Nonetheless, it reshaped my perspective on what really matters." Helena felt a connection that went beyond simple allure. There was something about Javier that resonated deeply within her. Maybe it was the shared sorrow, or maybe it was the way they had both been driven to rebuild their lives. Still, a soft voice inside warned him about how quickly he was exposing his true self. "You barely know him." The voice that resonated with a comforting maternal tone warned him. Carmen Suarez. She articulated her thoughts with clarity during her last call. "My dear, you have recently come out of a challenging relationship. Approach new relationships with care, especially when it comes to individuals you don't know well. Javier observed that you possess a reflective disposition." Helena smiled, her concern for me clear as she recalled something her mother used to say. He joked that mothers possess an uncanny ability to sense trouble. "What warnings did he share about me?" "I find it difficult to fully understand who you really are." Javier seemed to tense up slightly. "And who do you think I am?" Just as Helena was on the verge of responding, a poised woman elegantly approached her table. She stood tall, dressed in a black gown that exuded sophistication, embodying a presence of self-assurance and command. "Javier, my dear, what a wonderful surprise to find you here," she said, placing a possessive hand on his shoulder. "Gabriela," he responded, a hint of discomfort in his voice. "I was completely unaware that you were in Buenos Aires. Farma Herrera's immediate issues. You are already aware of the experience of leading the vice presidency of the largest company in Latin America." He leaned down and softly kissed Javier, the movement smooth and natural. He directed his attention to Helena, as if he were encountering her anew. "You haven't made the introductions." "Helena Ramirez, Gabriela Torres," Javier remarked with a touch of aloofness. "Ramirez?" Gabriela narrowed her gaze. The legal representative engaged in the global custody issue. Javier has expressed a strong curiosity about your circumstances. He even investigated your ex-partner." "What is the name of that individual?" Certainly Ricardo Fuentes." Helena felt a shiver slither through her veins. "Have you explored Ricardo?" he asked Javier directly. "Helena, may I expand on that?" Gabriela continued, appearing to savor the moment. "And that special attention for your son. Javier consistently demonstrates exceptional kindness with the offerings from Farma Herrera. The initiative was his creation, you see, even though he usually isn't so personal in his decisions. The components came together effortlessly, crafting an intriguing mystery. The remarkable medical treatment, the chance encounters, information pertaining to your circumstances. So, you're the mastermind behind Farma Herrera?" Helena whispered, her mind drifting back to the emblem on Mateo's prescriptions. "Indeed, however, that isn't the case." Helena stood up abruptly, her tone resolute. "You examined my history. You investigated my ex-partner. You handled all of this, didn't you? The meetings, the support staff. What else can you perceive about me without my guidance?" "Let me explain what exactly?" "Ever since you observed my vulnerability on that plane, it feels as though you've been orchestrating the very essence of my life." The restaurant seemed to revolve around him. She felt a familiar surge of nausea, reminiscent of those moments when Ricardo controlled every aspect of her life, when he examined her phone, and when he questioned her friends about their locations. Javier sought to clarify that this might not be the impression you have. "What are my reflections, Javier?" His voice trembled. Do you know about that too? Gabriella watched, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips, one she fought to conceal. Of course, please feel free to carry on with your conversation. Javier, let's go over the contract with Brazil tomorrow. Helena clutched her bag tightly. I thought you were one of a kind, he said, his voice shaking. But you're just another powerful person who thinks you have the right to control the destinies of others. He stepped out of the restaurant, engulfed by a feeling of constriction, as though the very walls were pressing in around him. The sharp night air of Buenos Aires did little to alleviate the heavy feeling of confinement. She had escaped from one ornate cage with Ricardo, only to find another, seemingly kinder yet just as restrictive. As she journeyed to her hotel, tears blurred her vision. She felt naive, pure, yet most importantly, she was engulfed by a profound sense of betrayal. For this time, unlike with Ricardo, she had genuinely begun to lower her defenses. As he entered the taxi, he made a solemn promise to himself that this would be the final occasion. She had faced Ricardo Fuentes. She would face Javier Herrera. And this time she wouldn't permit anyone else to get close enough to cause her pain again. The return to Mexico was a painful ordeal. Elena immersed herself in the work documents, deliberately ignoring every call and message from Javier. She felt completely ridiculous. He had allowed his defenses to falter, letting hope seep through the cracks in his weary heart. Faced the same error again. As the aircraft trembled, I pondered deeply, entrusting my confidence to a figure of command. Upon reaching Mexico City, he found 3 voice messages from Javier and 1 from Ricardo waiting for him. She paid attention to her ex-husband's words first. At this moment, you are engaging with Javier Herrera. Ricardo's voice dripped with malevolence. It's truly astonishing that you can overlook our suffering son while effortlessly relishing a dinner with one of the richest entrepreneurs in Latin America. The judge will be very interested in discovering the funding sources for Mateo's new treatments. Elena was hit by a sudden wave of nausea. What informed Ricardo's understanding of Javier? The answer was evident. Within the world of trade, news was circulating swiftly. It seems probable that someone caught sight of her dinner with Javier and had a comment to share about it. The subsequent days unraveled like a maze of bureaucratic hurdles. Ricardo has formally presented his request to modify custody terms, expressing worries about maternal neglect and questioning Elena's ethical character. What a dreadful joke, Lucia commented, her eyes scanning the lawsuit in the small office they shared. Ricardo Fuentes engaging in a conversation about moral principles. The person who separated you from your dear ones and friends for a long time. But he has money and connections, Elena said, rubbing her temples, and now he's implying that I have a benefactor who pays for Mateo's treatments. The phone rang again. It was Javier. Once again. Will you ever think about replying to him? Lucia asked. There's truly no point in further conversation. Lucia has already examined my background. He explored the intricacies of Ricardo. He arranged everything for. The reason eludes my understanding entirely. And if you decide to pay attention to it, offering an explanation doesn't tie you to any commitments. Finally, Elena answered the phone when Javier called. Her response fueled more by exhaustion than by any genuine inclination. I appreciate your reply, Elena. His voice expressed a genuine feeling of relief. I need to clarify something for you. She replied coolly, without a hint of needing to explain herself. I appreciate the medical support given to Mateo, but I have no additional requests at this time. Respect my boundaries and decisions, a notion my previous partner never understood. Please, just 5 minutes. Javier, I'm currently feeling quite burdened by the difficulties brought on by a controlling presence in my life. I don't need another one. Goodbye. Just 2 days later, an envelope found its way to his office. Inside the envelope was a handwritten letter along with documents related to a foundation focused on assisting children with respiratory issues. Elena began to compose the letter. I acknowledge and honor your decision to avoid communication with me. I just want to convey the truth to you. Certainly, I arranged for Mateo's treatment. Indeed, I examined Ricardo not as a tool for dominance, but rather as a measure to guarantee your well-being. My younger brother lost his life due to the lack of proper care for his asthma. Seeing Matteo in that situation stirred a deep sense of urgency within me to intervene. I recognized that my methods might have overstepped certain limits. My intention was to help without imposing any sense of duty. Everything regarding Gabriella. She used to be my fiancée, but that was a long time ago, and we went our separate ways well before now. What you observed was her attempt to dismantle something she perceived as a threat. I truly lament the damage that has occurred. I will respect your limits. Elena tucked the letter away in a drawer, her feelings a tempest inside her. A part of her essence longed to place her trust in him. Another facet, the one Ricardo had trained himself to be cautious of, remained alert. The first custody hearing came at me like an unexpected ambush. Ricardo presented compelling evidence indicating potential negligence. Photos of Matteo captured while he was in the hospital. Visual representations of modified conversations. Reports from individuals familiar with her suggested that Elena prioritized her career aspirations over her duties as a parent. Mr. Ramirez's attorney argued that her emphasis on rejuvenating her social life has resulted in neglecting our son's welfare. While dining with a wealthy individual in Buenos Aires, the young person suffered a serious asthma attack. The action was understated but intentional. Elena stood firm, presenting her evidence of Ricardo's overbearing behavior and the vindictive manner in which he had cut off the family health insurance. The hearing wrapped up without arriving at a clear resolution. The judge organized psychological evaluations and supervised visits while further information was gathered. The first supervised visit turned out to be an utter disappointment. Ricardo spent the entire time questioning Matteo about his mother's new friend, putting the boy under significant pressure. As Matteo re-entered Ricardo's house, an unexpected asthma attack seized him. Elena was deeply engrossed in her task when the call arrived. "Mrs. Ramirez, your son is in the hospital," the social worker said. He had an episode during his visit with his father. As he entered, the hospital buzzed with turmoil. Ricardo remained poised, feigning concern before the medical staff, but his glare pierced through to Elena. "If you had truly looked after him, we wouldn't be in this situation," he murmured, their paths crossing in the narrow hallway. "You canceled his insurance, Ricardo. You questioned him relentlessly until he had an episode," she replied, her fury barely contained. "Is there a problem?" a familiar voice asked. Elena turned her gaze to Javier, who was impeccably dressed in formal attire and holding a briefcase. "What brings you here?" she asked, a hint of confusion in her voice. "Licenciado Herrera," he replied, extending a card to Ricardo, the legal advisor for Mrs. Ramirez. Ricardo narrowed his eyes, his focus intensifying. "So now you're his advocate in court. Convenient, Mr. Fuentes," Javier responded with a calm demeanor. "I understand that you deliberately canceled Matteo's health insurance after the divorce, which constitutes parental negligence according to Article 323 of the Civil Code. Furthermore, I have proof of your attempts to sabotage Ms. Ramirez's career, including emails directed to her colleagues and clients." Ricardo's face lost all color. "That represents a breach of privacy. Nevertheless, it doesn't apply when the recipients of those emails opt to share them voluntarily," Javier responded, as he opened his portfolio. "I also have the recording from today's visit, where you exerted psychological pressure on a minor with a pre-existing medical condition." Elena watched the exchange, intrigued. She couldn't quite grasp how Javier had come by that knowledge, but the effect was immediate. Ricardo flinched. "This isn't finished," he cautioned before leaving. "What about Matteo?" Javier asked once they were alone. "Stable now," came the reply. "I appreciate your actions, whatever they may be. I merely expressed the truth, Elena. It's the sole pursuit I've ever truly wanted." Their eyes met, and in that instant, after the chaotic dinner in Buenos Aires, Elena felt that maybe, just maybe, she should listen to him fully. 6 months can change everything. For Elena, those months were marked by deep transformation and steadfast determination. With the legal pressure from Ricardo temporarily lifted thanks to Javier's intervention, He could now concentrate on establishing his own practice focused on domestic violence and family law cases. A simple office in the Roma neighborhood, equipped with 2 desks and a secretary shared with another attorney. It wasn't lavish, but it was his own. Ramirez y Ni Asociados, Family Justice. The modest sign at the entrance announced. It's perfect, Mom, Mateo said, his asthma now well controlled through regular treatment. Do you see it that way? The small when you think about your dad's business. But here, people aren't shy about smiling, the boy said, revealing the understanding that only kids from broken homes have. Elena held her son close, struggling to hold back her tears. There were instances like this one, when every bit of effort seemed entirely warranted. The first client came through the suggestion of Lucia, a young woman whose bruises were poorly hidden beneath thick layers of makeup. I can't afford to pay much, the woman warned. We have a pro bono program, Elena replied. Please share your situation. Before long, the small firm began to notice a surge of similar cases. Elena labored through challenging days, but for the first time in years, she felt a genuine connection to her environment. One day, while reviewing the lease agreement for the premises, she discovered something captivating. The rent was notably below the market rate. In response to his question, the administrator explained, "This building is owned by the Nuevo Amanecer Foundation. They offer affordable spaces for professionals involved in community services." Elena, unfamiliar with the foundation, felt a tug of curiosity from her lawyer's instincts, prompting her to investigate further. He discovered that it had been established just 6 months earlier, curiously coinciding with his search for a location. Since the incident at the hospital, he had refrained from contacting Javier. He respected her desire for space, limiting his correspondence to a folder filled with all the evidence against Ricardo, which she used to combat her ex-husband's intimidation. This distance provided him with the space to reflect. His initial anger shifted to confusion and eventually evolved into a cautious admiration for Javier's approach to the situation, offering support without imposing his will, appreciating her autonomy while lending assistance. "Mom, can we invite Mr. Javier to my school recital?" Mateo inquired one afternoon, surprising Elena. "Why would you want to invite him? You barely know him." "I write letters to him," the boy confessed, his eyes cast down. "And he replies, sends me books about science, and explains things about asthma that are frightening, yet he makes them feel ordinary." Elena found herself at a loss for words. "Since when?" "From the hospital. He provided me with his email and urged me to contact him with any inquiries regarding my illness, as his brother had gone through it as well." A week later, Elena organized a fundraiser for her pro bono program, securing a cozy venue and inviting former colleagues alongside potential donors. To his surprise, the turnout surpassed his expectations. As the event progressed, he conveyed his appreciation to the attendees and noticed a man named Javier lingering at the back of the room. Not among the VIPs and not craving attention, he watched from afar. After Elena finished her speech, she made her way through the crowd to reach him. "I wasn't expecting you," he said, his voice more composed than his feelings. "I support initiatives that truly matter," he went on, "and yours definitely fits the bill." A subtle smile crossed his face, echoing the essence of the New Dawn Foundation. "You've done your research. I'm a lawyer, after all, that's what I do." An uneasy stillness enveloped the room. When Mateo brought up the letters, Elena shattered the silence. "I hope you don't mind, that was never my intention," she interjected. "It has taken me some time to understand this, but now I see the difference between control and support. Ricardo's approach was to restrict, while yours was to encourage growth." Javier's face lit up with excitement. "Elena, about what happened in Buenos Aires." "Not here," she said, conscious of the curious eyes of several guests upon them. "Can we talk about it later?" Javier nodded and slipped away quietly. Just as Elena was preparing to look for him at the end of the event, her mother made a grand entrance at the door. Carmen Suarez, embodying her signature flair, approached Elena. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Elena inquired. "I believed you were watching over Mateo. Your son is with Lucia." I came here because I have something significant to discuss with you in person. Carmen softly grasped her daughter's arm and led her to a quiet corner. I have been in contact with Javier Herrera. Elena felt the earth shake beneath her. What was that? Why? At first, it was due to Mateo asking for my help. He required assistance with dispatching his letters, but then I came across something significant that you should know. Carmen explained how Javier had been offering anonymous advice to Elena's law firm through the foundation. He had meticulously gathered evidence against Ricardo for months, consistently operating within legal limits. He was resolute in maintaining his anonymity, convinced that Elena ought to succeed through her own abilities. Why was it not brought up sooner? Because you needed time, my dear. Time to heal, to prove that you could stand on your own. He understood that well. He was never one to impose or crave recognition. Elena remembered Javier's letter, the mention of her brother, the charity for children battling respiratory issues. Your brother lost his life to asthma, right? Carmen nodded. Miguel Herrera, just 15 years old. His parents couldn't afford the specialized care he needed. At the age of 20, Javier was immersed in university life. He dedicated himself to hard work and learning, but it never seemed enough. After the heartbreaking loss of his parents a year later, he made a solemn promise that no child should have to face such a fate if he could prevent it. How do you know all this? Because he mentioned it to me while we were anxiously awaiting news from Mateo at the hospital, Carmen replied. It was not a story of wealth showcasing generosity. It was the sincere expression of a sibling still wrestling with sorrow. Tears brimmed in Elena's eyes. Everything fell into place. Javier's instinctive reaction to Mateo's asthma attack on the plane, his genuine worry for the child's well-being, the deeper bond that tied them all together. And there's one more thing, Carmen interjected, pulling an envelope from her purse. Mateo has been working on this. Inside were several children's illustrations. One showed 3 figures linked together, marked as Mom, me, and Javier. Another portrayed an airplane with 2 people dozing off, featuring an arrow that read, "This is where it all began." I never asked him to stay away because of Mateo, Elena murmured. Fear drove my actions. Carmen grasped her daughter's hand firmly. It's understandable to experience fear after your ordeal with Ricardo, but keep in mind that not every man is the same. Some truly wish to uplift you without seeking to control your existence. As Elena exited the room, she discovered that Javier had already left. The sole trace of his presence was a solitary note. When you're ready to talk, if you ever are, you know where to find me. After what felt like an eternity, Elena felt a stirring within her, a readiness for something greater than just getting by. She was poised to welcome trust back into her life. The Mexico City International Airport thrummed with its characteristic vibrant atmosphere. Elena wove through the throng of people, a knot of anxiety tightening in her chest as she checked her watch again and again. The place he had chosen resonated with a meaning that now struck her as all too obvious, maybe even somewhat predictable. And if he doesn't arrive, he mused, biting his lower lip. His message had been brief. We need to talk where it all started. At 5 p.m., Javier responded simply, I'll be there. He lingered at the boarding gate, the very one he had crossed on his journey to Buenos Aires nearly a year ago. That flight had changed everything for them. Here I am, came a voice from behind him. Elena turned to see Javier, looking more gaunt than she remembered, with dark circles under his eyes suggesting sleepless nights. He wore a casual outfit, a stark contrast to the formal suit he usually sported. Thank you for coming, she said, a wave of uncertainty washing over her. Would you like to take a walk? They moved through the hushed atmosphere until they stumbled upon a somewhat tranquil cafeteria. Once they settled in, steaming cups of coffee placed before them, the heaviness of their unvoiced thoughts felt almost suffocating. I spoke with my mother, and eventually, Elena broke the silence. She brought up your brother Miguel. Javier lowered his gaze to his cup. Miguel was remarkable. I dreamed of becoming a doctor, specializing in respiratory illnesses. Curiously, a wistful smile graced his lips. When he passed away, a fracture occurred within my family. My parents, The accident a year later seemed almost fated, as if they had relinquished their vigilance. I sincerely apologize, Javier. When I saw you on that plane, exhausted, fighting your own battles, he continued. And then Mateo, ensnared by his asthma attack, found himself experiencing the entire ordeal all over again. I rushed into a decision, and I recognize that now. I should have been clear from the beginning about who I am and my desire to help. What kept you from moving forward? Javier let out a deep sigh. It seems that many change how they treat me depending on my last name and wealth. Some shower me with praise, but it's really for their own benefit. Individuals often judge me without grasping my true essence. Your extraordinary strength and grace amidst adversity motivated me to reach out to you, transcending the typical constraints of my position. I recognize now that it was a self-serving act. Elena nodded, taking in his words. When I uncovered your true identity and recognized that you had explored my past, a profound sense of betrayal washed over me, she confessed. Ricardo controlled every aspect of my existence. He examined my phone, interrogated my friends, and cast doubt on my career opportunities. It took me years to understand that this was neither safeguarding nor affection. I never intended to control you, Elena. His gaze held a raw honesty that was impossible to ignore. My intention was to stand back and let your brilliance shine. I just needed a moment to understand it, she admitted. The line separating control from support can frequently blur when one is used to enduring mistreatment. A reflective silence surrounded them. Outside, planes took off and landed, carrying people toward new horizons and fresh possibilities. Elena finally expressed that Mateo has been longing for your presence. I replied to him, noting that he is a remarkable young man. He has been capturing our family in sketches, and you feature in those illustrations. Javier seemed truly surprised. Elena, I do not wish to assume a role that does not belong to me. I have always respected your boundaries and your autonomy. I understand, she replied, summoning her determination. And that is precisely why I am here, because you have achieved what no one else has, supporting me unconditionally, helping me without diminishing me, valuing me without possessing me. For the first time in the conversation, Elena reached across the table, taking Javier's hand. I'm not sure how much I can contribute, he continued. I am on a journey of healing, gradually discovering the path to trust. I bear the weight of fear, scars, and a son who is my priority. I ask for nothing more than what you are able to give, he said gently, holding her hand. We can move at our own pace, unburdened by pressure or expectations. Are you ready to start fresh, embracing total honesty and leaving behind any preconceived notions? I would be thrilled to, Javier smiled warmly. Allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Javier Herrera, 36 years old, and I own a pharmaceutical company that I established from scratch following the profound loss of my family. He holds a profound admiration for Garcia Marquez and subtly advocates for the often overlooked causes. Elena chuckled, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. Elena Ramirez, 33, is an attorney specializing in family law, a dedicated mother to an extraordinary child, a survivor of a challenging marriage, and is learning that asking for help is a testament to strength, not a sign of weakness. The following weeks unfolded as a path of rediscovery. Javier met Mateo in a more formal context, now as Elena's friend instead of a concealed ally. Their days brimmed with visits to museums and parks, culminating in warm dinners at Elena's home. There were no extravagant jewels or upscale restaurants. Javier understood that her genuine appreciation was rooted in authenticity, not the luxury that Ricardo had used to manipulate. Carmen watched the evolution of this relationship with thoughtful approval. One afternoon, as Elena and Javier prepared a meal together, their laughter echoed around them, and she leaned in to share a secret with her daughter. This one values your independence. He wishes to walk beside you. What gives you such assurance? Elena asked. He watches you when you think he's not paying attention, and he radiates pride when you achieve something by yourself. Ricardo's face clouded over when you showed your self-sufficiency. Javier acknowledges your strength. 3 months later, while visiting the zoo, Mateo sprinted ahead to see the elephants, momentarily leaving them behind. I love you, Javier stated simply without embellishment. Not because of what you expect from me, but because of the core of your being. Elena felt a warmth blooming in her chest. It wasn't the overwhelming excitement he had once mistaken for love in his youth, but something deeper, more serene, and profoundly lasting. I love you too, he replied. It sends a shiver down my spine. Fear is just part of the game, he said, flashing a grin. It indicates that something important is at stake. He took her hand as they watched Mateo animatedly pointing at the animals. Did you catch what Mateo told me yesterday? Elena said. He values my company when you're around. He noted that he finds himself smiling more frequently. He is an incredibly insightful child. He noted that he values your demeanor when you think no one is watching. Javier raised an eyebrow, intrigued. So, how would you characterize me? Kind to those we are unfamiliar with. Serene and poised. Fully present in the moment. Elena radiated happiness. The crucial elements that Ricardo consistently failed to embody. Ultimately, he had relinquished his attempts to gain custody, as the evidence amassed by Javier cast a long shadow over him, poised to expose his hidden truths. Their earlier meeting had been brief and surprisingly amicable. Perhaps he had unearthed a motive for change, or maybe he had simply faced yet another challenge to tackle. As darkness wrapped around the world, Mateo rested soundly. Meanwhile, Elena and Javier stood on the small balcony of their apartment, deep in contemplation, staring at the shimmering lights of the city. Do you remember that time on the plane when you leaned against my shoulder and drifted off? He asked, his tone a bit distant. I was completely worn out, barely able to remember when I settled into my seat. It was then that I unknowingly fell in love, Javier confessed. It wasn't your looks that captivated me, but the profound essence you represented. Strength, elegance, resilience. The image of Mateo peeking from your bag left me genuinely spellbound by your extraordinary ability to love without conditions. Elena rested her head on Javier's shoulder, a gentle reminder of their first meeting. Who would have imagined that weariness could herald the beginning of something so beautiful? He murmured. Sometimes, we need to lower our defenses to let the light in, he said quietly, placing a soft kiss on her forehead. Under the expansive, shimmering sky of Mexico City, Elena began to understand the difference between being rescued and being uplifted. Ricardo had tried to rescue her to possess her. Javier walked beside her, extending his hand when she needed encouragement, letting go when she was prepared to rise independently. In that delicate balance of independence and connection, of personal strength and shared vulnerability, both unearthed a gem far richer than material riches, the opportunity to love without constraints, liberated from fear. A year later, the Mexico City International Airport became the backdrop for another significant moment in Elena's journey. This time, she strode with intention, free from anxiety. This time, I found myself in a warm family gathering, making our way to the boarding gate, filled with laughter. Are we there yet? Mateo, now 10, asked, his voice bubbling with a mix of eagerness and restlessness. I have kept this secret for a full 2 weeks. As we sat on the plane, Javier made a promise, affectionately ruffling the boy's hair. The allure of the unknown captivated us. Elena watched the moment unfold, her smile radiating tranquility. The Ramirez and Asociados law firm grew to encompass 5 attorneys focusing on family law and domestic violence issues. Her pro bono initiative received national recognition, and she recently achieved victory in a landmark case that set a precedent for women in situations similar to those she had previously faced. Javier's transformation was equally impressive. He reshaped Pharma Herrera to prioritize the advancement of research in childhood respiratory diseases. The Miguel Herrera Foundation, created in honor of his brother, provided supplementary treatment to children from disadvantaged families. What are you thinking about? Javier asked, noticing her contemplative expression as they got ready to board. In light of everything that has changed since our previous adventure, she replied. At that time, we were oblivious to the bond we shared. I recognized it the instant you fell asleep on my shoulder, he smiled. Before my mind could catch up, my heart already knew. The flight was unexpectedly bound for the Riviera Maya, a charming surprise from Javier to celebrate the first anniversary of their official relationship. Mateo was filled with a rush of excitement. This would be his first adventure to the ocean. Once in the air, the boy pulled out his drawing notebook, an ever-present companion. With a concentrated fervor typical of his age, he began to sketch lines that swiftly took shape. An aircraft, shadows of individuals, a story told through imagery. "What creation are you crafting, my friend?" Javier asked, leaning in from his seat. "The narrative we weave," Mateo responded with ease. "What caused Mom to zone out while you were speaking? What prompted you to realize your feelings of love without even being aware of it?" Elena and Javier exchanged surprised looks. "How do you know that?" Elena asked. "Grandma Carmen told me the whole story," Mateo replied, his gaze fixed intently on his drawing. He noted that true love often comes when we are too exhausted to maintain the walls we build around our hearts. "Your grandmother possesses a remarkable talent for storytelling," Javier said, enchanted by Carmen's perspective. "He insists he simply mirrors what he has seen in life," Mateo expanded on his creations, "and that you represent the idea of new beginnings." The illustration captured the exact moment from that first night, with Elena leaning on Javier's shoulder on the plane, him looking at her with a mix of wonder and something deeper, something they could now identify as the beginning of a significant feeling. "You are capturing that moment better than a photograph," Javier noted. "I am not merely depicting what was visible," Mateo clarified with a straightforwardness that only children have. Elena grasped Javier's hand, their fingers weaving together, illustrating the emotions within. She had chosen not to wear an engagement ring, as they had mutually agreed that the formalities could be postponed. Their bond surpassed any typical symbol, rooted in deep respect, steadfast honesty, and the understanding that true love neither owns nor dominates. Rather, it inspires and elevates. "Sometimes, I reflect," Elena murmured, "on how something as seemingly insignificant as falling asleep in an unforeseen location can change the trajectory of an entire life." "It wasn't the wrong place," Javier replied softly. "It was precisely the right place. We just didn't realize it at that moment." Mateo immersed himself in his drawing, crafting a sequence that depicted his personal journey. The asthma attack, the mysterious treatment, the clandestine letters shared with Javier, the foundation they built, and finally, the three of them united in the present. Outside the plane window, a stunning sunset unfolded, painting the sky in rich shades of orange and purple. Elena rested her head on Javier's shoulder, this gesture deliberate and meaningful, reminiscent of their initial encounter, but now enriched by the weight of their collective experiences. "Do you realize what makes all of this so breathtaking?" she asked. That you didn't save me. You were present as I navigated my return." Javier placed a soft kiss on her forehead. "You saved me, even if you don't realize it, from a life where accomplishments eclipsed true connections." Mateo, lost in his own world, focused intently on his creation, oblivious to the conversation happening around him. In the final panel of his illustration, he included an element that caused Elena to gasp. The trio, hand in hand, gazes toward a horizon illuminated by the rising sun. Below, in his youthful yet resolute script, he penned, "A weary mother drifts off atop a millionaire, and he unknowingly falls in love. A love story that captivates the heart." Elena and Javier shared knowing smiles at the perfect yet simple description. Up above, where destiny had once united them, they now flew together, guided by their own choice. Within that contrast lay the heart of their story's allure. What began as a serendipitous moment, shaped by weariness, transformed into a conscious decision to cherish one another each day, embracing all the imperfections, fears, and dreams that accompanied it. The plane soared through the endless sky, carrying not just three people, but three spirits who realized that second chances, rooted in truth, can flourish into something more beautiful and lasting than the most captivating of tales.